Good afternoon on what is a bright, cold and sunny day. It is Sunday the 7th of January and I'm in the reading Nook with a nice hot cup of tea. And a parcel to unbox. So, see if I can find where I'm supposed to be opening this. There we go. What I've got here is a copy of Tomorrow City. This is by Nathan Russell, and it promises Dieselpunk Roleplaying, and it's published by Osprey Books, who have done some really terrific little role-playing games like Paleomythic and Neon City and Jackals and Hard City. And Hard City is Nathan Russell also designed that one. So, Tomorrow City was one of the cities of the future, built to usher in a new age of prosperity, seizing on scientific achievements at the dawn of the 20th century. Then came the war. Radium-powered soldiers assembled, diesel-fueled nightmares rolled off production lines. City fought city, and the world burned in atomic fire. We survived barely. Tomorrow City still stands, an oil-stained beacon of hope, part refuge, part asylum. Beset by dangers from both within and without, a secret war now rages on its streets. Forgotten monstrosities stalk the alleyways. Air pirates strike from the wastelands, and scientists continue their dark work. Occultists manipulate the city's strange geometry, and secret societies plot in the shadows. So, Tomorrow City is a role-playing game of action, mystery, and mad science. Join the underground and fight the crime and corruption at the heart of the city. Sell your dieselpunk tech at occult knowledge and sheer grit as troubleshooters for mysterious paymasters. Hunt down spies, saboteurs, and science run amok. As Worry Sky Rangers, fringe scientists, and radium-powered veterans, you might be all that stands between a better tomorrow and the tomorrow at all. That sounds promising. Because essentially, a lot of people, you do get occasionally dieselpunk role-playing games, essentially taking the idea of cyberpunk, but having, instead of cybernetics and electronics and the sort of a digital transformation, what you've got instead is hard technology of the 20s and 30s and even up into the 40s and 50s. So, however, there aren't very many dieselpunk role-playing games. There aren't really very many dieselpunk works of fiction. Anyway, here we've got the contents page and credits. So it's quite a lengthy list of credits. So this runs to over 200 pages, which makes it actually one of the longer role-playing games published by Osprey Games. So you've got the introduction, which essentially explores a future, but not as we know it. It says, it basically asks the question, what is dieselpunk, and explores it, and it says, is this steampunk, is cyberpunk? And it says, dieselpunk is often described as being part of a continual genre, sitting between the hopeful optimism of steampunk and the cynicism of cyberpunk. It is dirty and gritty and incorporates elements of both these genres, as well as a multitude of others. Feel free to cherry-pick elements that you like and throw into the mix of your Tomorrow City games. And then we have a list of inspiration, TV, film, music, graphic novels and games and so on. So the most obvious couple of touchdowns in terms of games. So computer games, it's Bioshock 2. And then for tabletop games, it looks at Crimson Skies, which was FASA's game of aerial combat in an alternate 20s and 30s. In a fractured America, and that also got its own computer game, which is actually a lot of fun to play. Got introduction to role-playing 101, most of which, of course, will be familiar to most role players, but there were some people going to pick this up as their first role-playing game. And start a description of the setting, the city of tomorrow, sort of floating above the landscape. And basically gives it, an overview of how it was then, how it is now. dealing with issues like Mother, going to be basically the mechanism in charge, weird science, automatons and robots, the different ministries. So he's taken sort of like inspiration from 1984, because you've got like the Ministry of Peace, Ministry of Truth, Ministry of Science. All the company, but it's really fantastic artwork. We sort of like, you just see how heavy the technology is. There's nothing digital or electronic about it particularly. It's more electrical rather than electronic. You see what I mean? And then we have various cults and societies like the Anti-Robot League and the followers of Moloch, the Court of Pigeons, revolutionists, and so on. Crime law, punishment, how that is handled. Citizens of interest, so you've got some various NPCs that player characters might run into, or might be talked about, or appear on screens and newspapers, sort of like to provide inspiration and so on. Before we get into a breakdown of the various different city districts. So instead of imagining it sort of like the city is a spindle, that we sort of like almost like standard American kind of organisation and naming convention. So yes, you've got an inner city, you've got Midtown, and then where it differs, you've got Riverside, and so on. The great factories, you've got the great work area, an underside, an old Calais, which is going to be out in the wastelands, and we've got how to get around and a guide to mapping the city, because there isn't, obviously, I've not so far seen a map in here of the city. It almost perhaps doesn't need one before we get into the rules and how the game works. And how it uses basically tags. Tags are presumably basically going to get things to work, bring them into play. We've got the core rules, modifiers, and automatic and impossible actions, how extended checks work, what happens when you play characters are putting under pressure, and the consequences of the actions, whether they pass or fail, including soft and hard consequences, boons, and botches. In general, essentially, the Osprey game books are not complex to play. And then we get into combat, and various conditions that the player character might suffer as a result of his travails in and out of the city. And we've got healing and moxie and recovering it. Essentially, moxie is kind of like it's going to be your extra effort that you put in, and then we get onto characters, and essentially quick guide to creating them, trademarks, essentially things about you which stand out about your character, about what you do, and then we talk about different backgrounds you can take. So you've got things like drone, riffraff, skyriser, wastelander, winterborn, and so on. How you basically their backgrounds are sort of like, so for example, if you were windborn, you've been born on one of like the presumably one of the dirigibles that travel the world. Wastelanders, you born out in the wastelands, and so on. Descriptors: broken, bold. How you describe your characters: gentility, charming, genius, huge, perceptive, quick, and their benefits and disadvantages, and so on. And then we get on to you've got occupations. So we start off with apothecary, an aviator. Aviator is probably going to be a favourite. Crook, engineer, gadgeteer, even a gargoyle. Gargoyles are your vigilante and defender of the week. So the gargoyles are not what you think, but they do skulk in the night. Gumshoe, muckraker, scrapper, sharpshooter. All clearly simply laid out. Sky Ranger and veteran. we've got options on there for things for pattern weaving. Now, pattern weavers are pattern is a mysterious energy created and connected to the strange geometry of the city. So essentially, there's a power running through the city, basically accessible and controlled via its geometry. So you've got different roles there, like an aberration tracker, a metaphysical geometrist, a symbolist, and just simply weird. Then we got on to edges, so trademarks, traits, edges and tags, advantages, bringing those into your character. Drives, what pushes your character to act. Ties, and so on. Basically, tied to organisations, other characters, they can be good and bad. And here we have an example of character creation. Always appreciate it when you have an example of character creation. This is kept separate. Sometimes they're worked in. If you're reading an example of character creation, as you go step by step, which is useful. But here, you could just read through this and get an idea of how it works before you even go back and start looking at it in detail yourself. And the other nice thing about this is it looks at the author's workings. So how do I create a character? How do you create a character for my role-playing game? That sort of thing. And then we have a section of gear, what it does, including lifestyle as well as your equipment. And the gear has its own tags. It can be negative and positive. We've got a list of weapons and so on. These are going to have to be imagined, I presume, by the players as you rush into it. So you've got close combat weapons and ranged weapons, heavy weapons and explosives, personal armour, and tools, and then serums. So basically, whether it's going to heal you or help you or hinder you. Then we have robots as well. So you can essentially design the robots, including size and intellect. And we've got a discussion there of robots versus TomTom, the differences between the two. Vehicles, because essentially basically plenty of room for sort of like vehicular combat, whether it's on the ground or in the air, particularly in the air with something like Dieselpunk. So we've got a discussion of different surface vehicles and dirigibles before we get thrown into danger. And here we've got basically the narrative advice and advice for the game master in running Tomorrow City. Handling arguments and chases and races and combat, and again another nice example of the rules in play. Example of combat, always like this sort of thing, because again the rules are going to tell you how to do it. This is going to show you how to do it. And then we step up in terms of combat, so now we're dealing with dogfights. And then we come back down to earth with interrogations and questioning. So different types of situations and handling investigations before we look at pattern powers. Resisting horror and harm. What to do in downtime, including rest and recovery. Growing from experience and advances. So this is basically your between times, between adventures. And then different missions on the job. Mysteries and building a web of clues, and again, similar to that in the previous design from the author, Hard City, which was essentially film noir, and very well done. And we have advice to the game master in terms of character creation, running the game, bringing the game to life. Basically asking questions to the players to get the most out of the game and the world. Mastering mysteries, combat, Moxie, handing out rewards, dealing with the rewards, and then we've got a list of threats, their attitudes and reactions before we've got the proper list. So, tough guys, villains, other non-player characters. So we've got ministry agents and citizens, all given full stats, automatons and robots. In fact, I really like these. Basically, there's almost like an angel, but with essentially a television screen there for a head. So a full list of those. Experiments gone wrong. For example, brain in a jar, living cadaver, serum brute, tainted bloaters, two-headed nightmares, and so on. Troublemakers, crooks, fancy the court of pigeons, followers of Moloch. So a mixture of crooks and cultists. So to some extent you could run elements of this like a film noir, but we've also got pattern aberrations, and then bizarre horrors, and also environment as a threat. Things like maze-like cities, factory machine rooms, organisations given over a danger rating like the Collective, the Ministry of Truth, the Cult of Moloch. And then we get into a job, the escape plan, which gives you the lowdown, the hook. We have a location, nice clear cartography there. The transport dirigible, the gondola for that, and an overview, a proper overview of it. And then that's it, really. We've got a threats for the adventure, and a random generator for things like people and places. That's all useful. Basically use that as a series of prompts to help the game master basically create the world. Got a jobs generator, list of job hooks, and nice glossary at the end, useful reference. Before the last thing we have is the character sheet. So that is Tomorrow City from Osprey Games. That looks a lot of fun, and I'm going to look forward to giving that a proper review in due course. Anyway, thanks for watching another unboxing in the Nook. If you've enjoyed this, then please do click on the like button down below. And of course, if you've got any comments or feedback, I do appreciate you taking the time to post those. And lastly, if you want to be allowed to get more unboxings in the Nook, where you'll see me out here with a parcel containing a book or game or role-playing game, or in this case a role-playing game, which I will unbox and chat about to the best extent of my knowledge for roughly 10 minutes or so, all of course accompanied by a nice hot cup of tea. Then please do click on the subscribe button down below. Thanks again for watching another unboxing in the Nook. I'll be back again soon with another one. Bye for now.